Alright everybody, now we have audio, so let's try your first lecture again for Build a Chair. This is Computer Graphics DR270, and we're going to do additive and subtractive building. I am just going to show you guys the actual building of the units because we go over using the tools in class. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, and I'm going to go ahead and make an 18-inch by 18-inch square. I'm going to type 18, 18 and hit enter, and then I'm going to hit P for the push-pull tool. I could also come over here and grab it, but the more you get used to using keyboard shortcuts, the faster this will be. I'm going to pull this up to 3 feet, and that's the apostrophe symbol, and then hit enter. Now I want to remind you guys that subtractive means to take away. So we're making one big block, and then we're going to carve that out into a chair. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the seat and pull the seat down from the back of the chair, which means I need to leave some space for the back of the chair. I'm going to make this a very consistent 2 inches. So when I pull, I'm going to grab the tape measure tool, and then I'm going to click on this back line and pull down, or rather pull across the top of the shape. It depends on where I'm looking, whether or not I'm pulling over or pulling down with my mouse. But I'm going to pull it this way. I'm going to make sure that this line right here is a green arrow, and that means that I'm on the same plane as the top of the unit. Then I'm going to type 2 and hit enter, and that's going to give me a 2-inch line. Now if I was doing that, I could also type 2 and then a quote mark for inches and hit enter, but I don't need to do that because the default units of measure in this file are inches. So if I tell it nothing new, it'll assume I mean inches. So I'm going to grab the line tool, which is this pencil tool right here, and I'm going to make sure that when I click on that X. It's really important that you click the intersection, and it's really important to pay attention to where you click at all times so that you make sure that you're clicking in the right spot. I'm going to drag that over to this other intersection, and I'm going to make sure that it's on that X. It's not over here and my cursor is a red square which says I'm on the edge, but obviously you can see here I'm not on the intersection of the mark. I'm not going to go to the corner, I'm going to go to the intersection, and it will tell me, if you notice there's right there is very, very close to on the intersection, but I'm not actually on the intersection. I need to go down a little bit more until I'm on the intersection. This doesn't sometimes involve a lot of moving. As long as there's nothing weird on the screen, or as long as you're in a good view, you'll usually get these options very quickly. I'm going to go ahead and click to let go and grab the push-pull tool, and now I can see that these are 2 separate surfaces because there's a line in the way. I'm going to orbit down a little bit, and then I'm going to grab the surface and pull it down for the seat of my chair. Now I could eyeball it and say, oh, that looks about right, but as we've discovered, eyeballing isn't very dependable in SketchUp. So I'm going to type 18 and enter to give me 18 inches down on this chair. Now to cut out the front and sides of my chair in order to get 4 legs, there are a couple different methods I can use, so I'm going to show you 3 of them. One is to do the same thing we did up there with our tape measure tool and pull down 2 inch guidelines on each side. I want to be careful that from the top my pull line right there is blue, because that means I'm locked in the up and down direction. You can see here that I can also do it in green, and I'm going to go ahead and leave that guideline back there or up there so that I'm going to show you how that can be deceiving. So I'm going to bring this down, 2, enter. I'm going to grab the side and hit 2, enter. Grab this side, drag, and hit 2, enter. Now, even though I did that rather quickly, I was being careful to make sure that that's got a red arrow, and this also had a red arrow, and that had a blue arrow. As you saw, I made this one with a green arrow, and if I move a little bit, you can see that these 2 lines appear to intersect. So if I grab I'm going to grab the rectangle tool in order to make this rectangle here. Again, I'm going to pay attention to the intersection marker, and down here on the intersection marker. Now, the reason that's important is because up here, it looks like these 2 lines intersect, but they don't. And I can tell that because SketchUp is telling me that they don't intersect. If they intersected, SketchUp would tell me that there's an intersection going on, right, like that, right there. But it doesn't, because they don't touch each other. They look like they overlap, but they don't, because that other line I made is way in the back. And I can see that if I change my view. So sometimes when something is going weird or it's not giving you an intersection marker like this up here, the answer is because those aren't actually intersecting, and if you change your orbit or change your view, you're really going to be able to see that those things don't match up anymore. Okay? So now that I have a rectangle in the front, I'm going to grab my push-pull tool with the P key, and I'm going to push all the way through to the back. When I hit the back, it's going to reach an offset limit. And there you can see it's telling me that I have an offset limit of 1 foot 6 inches or 18 inches. Now, when I release, it's going to go ahead and delete that whole back panel because I'm deleting all of the lines involved. Over here, I'm going to do a different method. I'm going to pretty much just use math. So I'm going to take the tape measure tool and I'm going to make one guideline at 2 inches so I know where to start my rectangle. And if this is 18 inches with a 2-inch seat, then it's a 16-inch high rectangle. And if it's 18 inches with 2 sets of 2 inches taken out, it's a 14-inch wide triangle. Now, sometimes I forget which side is length and which side is width on these rectangles. And so what I usually do is make a long skinny triangle and then look over down at my dimensions. This says it's about a 1-inch. I'm going to scoot that over just until it's a little easier of a number. So this says it's about a 2-inch rectangle. There we go. And a 1 foot by 1 foot. So 2 inch in this case is the width and 1 foot is the height. So I'm going to make it 14 inches wide, comma, 16 inches high. And that gives me the right size rectangle. I'm going to grab the push-pull tool. I'm going to push it all the way through and click. Now, the reason it didn't cut out this time is because when I pushed in here, it created an excess line. In order to make that tunnel, it took a hollow shape and added a line at the bottom. So now that that line is added, it's not as easy for me to just cut that line out. So I'm going to take the eraser tool and erase that bottom line, and it'll erase the surface as well, because there's no longer a closed-in space for that surface to be made by. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to create another square, and this time I'm going to create too much geometry and delete the things that I don't need. So I'm going to grab this corner down here, and I'm going to come up here, and I'm just going to do this opposite corner, because that's going to give me, as you can see in the dimensions area, a 1 foot 6 by 2 inch rectangle, which is what I want. I'm going to do the same thing over here, except this time I don't have anything to lock on. And as you can see, as I get to a certain point, SketchUp wants to make that rectangle in a different direction. So instead, I'm going to get close and then type 18, 2 so that it makes it for me. I'm going to do the same thing down here. Again, it's having a little trouble getting there, but oh, it just kind of pushed it to that size. It knows that I've made it a couple times, and now it's guessing that I'm pretty close to it, so it's going to round off those numbers for me. So I'm going to go ahead and click to finish off that rectangle. I'm going to do it one more time. And again, it really wanted to give me that measurement because I've typed it in so many times. Now I'm going to take the eraser tool and erase the excess geometry. All I want is this rectangle right here, just like I had on all the other sides. So I'm going to erase that piece, make the chair line smooth, erase that excess bit that I don't need. Then I'm going to grab the push-pull tool and do the same thing I did the other side, push it to the offset limit, and erase my extra line. That gives me a fully transparent chair on the underside. Delete that guideline I didn't get before. And now we have a chair that we carved out of a big block. So we made one big block and then whittled it down until we got the chair that we wanted. So we could also make this additively. So I'm going to build another chair right next to this. And so the bottom of one of these legs is 2 inches by 2 inches. So I'm going to go 2, 2, enter. So I'm going to start with the bottom of one leg. Each of these legs are 18 inches tall because that's how high the seat is. So I'm going to grab that leg and pull it up, 18, enter. Now I could also, instead of doing 18, enter, I could also, since I already have something 18 inches tall and I want to match it, I can drag over an inference right here. And that means I just hover over it and SketchUp says, oh, you want it that tall? I can make it that tall. You want it this tall? I can make it this tall. And I'm going to click. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool again and build a rectangle here that's 2 inches by 2 inches. And as you notice, since it's a square, I got that dashed diagonal line here, and I know that that's a square. Also, my dimensions read 2 inches by 2 inches, so I didn't have to type a measurement to get a perfect measurement there. I'm going to grab the push-pull tool, and now I'm going to push, or pull rather, this front section of the seat. So that's going to be 16 inches. And I'm going to do this square trick one more time, 2 inches by 2 inches. Pull, and I'm just going to inference the other leg on this chair to make sure that they're the same height. Now I need to pull the seat all the way back to the right depth. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the pencil tool, or the line tool, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on the end point here, click, and drag over. And I'm going to make sure that that line is red, not gray, and not blue, and not green, but red, because red is this this axis. You can see the red line here in the background that helps me see that this is this axis. I'm also going to make sure it gets all the way to the edge and that my pencil tool does say on edge and that my cursor turns into a red square. That means that I'm on the edge, and that's very important because if it's not on the edge, if it's under the edge, it's not going to make this a separate surface. So that's an edge, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. And now the push-pull tool will give me a separate surface. If I don't do it all the way to that edge, I'm going to go back. If I miss it, then when I grab the push-pull tool, this is not a closed surface. It has to be closed. Now I can just complete that with another line tool, or with another line with the line tool, and that's fine. And the fact that these are two separate lines does not really affect anything, but it's easier to draw a longer line than it is to draw a shorter one. And also, if I had made a mistake like doing this and then completed it, my shape would be very weird. So I want to make sure that I do it correctly the first time. And this is another one of those instances where it would be a good idea to just Control Z and redo that one line rather than have your chair a really weird shape for the rest of your project. So I'm going to grab the surface and pull it out 16 inches, just like I did before, because 18 minus 2 is 16. Now I have these extra lines down here, and you can see that I also have this extra line here, and that's created because I did that in 2 line segments. But I can again erase those pretty easily, because if this is all one surface, then when I erase them, it'll be one clean surface. I am going to make 2 legs on the back, so I'm going to use the rectangle tool, anchor in the corner, pull in the general direction of the square that I want to make, and then go 2, 2, enter. Do the same thing over here, 2, 2, enter. Okay? Now I'm going to grab the push-pull tool and pull and inference the other legs. I'm making sure that my view is very specific. If I did this, I would be able to see this and I would be able to pull it, but I can't easily inference the bottom of another chair. Now SketchUp just made a liar out of me because it said, oh, you want it to be this long? Sure, no problem. But sometimes it's hard to get it to register that you want it that long. So I prefer to look at the surface that I'm trying to replicate. Last but not least, we're going to make the back of the chair again. And this time I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the tape measure tool, pull out 2 inches, line tool, make sure I go from intersection to intersection, push-pull tool, and pull up 18 inches. Enter. Now I could also grab it and inference it to the other chair. And that is 2 chairs that are exactly the same, one built entirely from the ground up and one carved completely out of a bigger piece. Now you can use a combination of methods in order to create a chair. You don't have to do everything, or any other object for that matter. You don't have to make everything subtractive or everything additive. You can use a mix of techniques in order to get the easiest result. And that's it for this